Well, here we go, jumping into our opening game. Ian, the bottom of your screen, Mugi at the top. And Ian, of course, lots of expectations from his big fan base. I asked him if it makes him nervous or is it motivating. He told me a lot of people expect him to do well, but he has tons of haters. And with a lot of fans, they come along with that too, but they've quieted down since I got to the top 8. And sometimes he says I sometimes screenshot hate comments to look back on later after I get the job done. So we'll see if those screenshots are sweet, sweet revenge or if they put salt in the wound after today.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. You got to have that, that chip on your shoulder when you want to be one of the greatest. And this conversation about Golem being so prevalent in the meta and Elixir Pump needing a bit of a nerf, it's so difficult to deal with either the Golem push or the Elixir Pump as this game moves on. Before there was ways to get on top of that pump that was not your big spell, right? Like Miners going on top of it, you could even Graveyard on top of it, you could even drill near it. But now with Dagger Duchess being so strong, it really takes that out of the equation, and it basically means your big spell has to be the way to cover that pump most of the time. When you see people win those matchups is when they get really innovative with how to take care of that pump whilst also still being able to play defense. So we'll see how Ian is going to deal with this as we get into double and triple Elixir, because if you're Mugi right now, all you're doing is just trying not to take a ton of damage and just to figure out his play style so that when we get into double and triple, he can start to punish.
Valk cycles in the back for Ian as Mugi replies with the Bomber, which is one of the 2 cards in his Evo spot. Evo Valkyrie could be interesting here against some of these pushes to use that little mini NATO to pull stuff together. We'll see if that ends up being a factor. Right now tanking for the Goblin Drill, but the Skeleton King able to cover that.
Yeah, Ian actually has a pretty good matchup here. I mean, again, you talk about being able to get on top of that pump. He's able to do that with his poison time and time again. Because he has the Xe and the NATO, he should be able to deal with, and there we go, right there, that Electro Dragon. That Electro Dragon is such a nuisance as well when you talk about the conversation of dealing with the pump and dealing with big pushes. You might ask why? Well, it's because a lot of times it's really hard to get on top of that Electro Dragon. You end up spending either your big spell or maybe just a little bit more elixir than you want to take care of the Electro Dragon, and then your opponent pumps up again, and then you find yourself in a world of hurt. So Ian doing a really good job of game management. And Rich, that Evo Valk and Evo Tesla are going to be imperative, just like the Tesla was for Hasael in match 1.
Neither one in Evo form available right now, though. We'll see how he handles this Golem push. And Mugi kind of playing against maybe some of the conventional wisdom of the history of Golem. Oh my word, Andrew.
The Skellies, I think the Skelly, maybe the Tesla's too low. I can't exactly tell if it was the Skellies or the Tesla, but the Golem goes right on through to tower. It's not huge, but that's exactly the last thing that you want when you're playing this matchup. Now we got another Golem in the back. Now we got Mugi in the damage lead. Now we got him back around to another pump soon. He's starting to control this game.
And Goblins will get a bit poison value on the right-hand side for Ian as well, maintaining his lead, but it is a tenuous one at the moment. Tesla in Evo form comes up high, will get some work done, has to NATO though, does Ian against the Skellies from the Skeleton King.
Yeah, really nice NATO there. Again, this Xe NATO combo that we've seen already in both of our opening sets of the day has been really, really strong. Another drill comes in, which is great from Ian. It's always baiting out a little bit of elixir on that right-hand side. He does still have the damage lead, and now we don't have this Night Witch behind the Golem, which is something that Mugi obviously wants.
And now a little bit of pressure on the right-hand side. You see the early cycle with the Skeleton King, maybe anticipating drill coming out. It will not be available for the next pickup. Bomber can do some work when he gets back to it, though. And this almost feels like Golem's cycle here, Andrew. The number of Golems that we're seeing far outstrips what you would, again, say traditional historical Golem play.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I was watching Juicy's stream, I think it was yesterday, and he was like, this guy that I'm playing has played more Golems at the bridge than anyone in the history of Clash Royale. And it's really interesting because that Golem at the bridge is not, it's not a bad play anymore, whereas before it felt like it was just like a desperation play. But I think the biggest thing here, man, is you look at the double NATO from Ian. The double NATO, the Teslas, just beautiful, beautiful defensive gameplay here. Getting that
certainly a lot. Let's see what he has here in game number 2. And no slow start. Ian going with the Knight to open. Little Prince, the next champion. Another note here, Andrew, Ian did not play a champ in game number 1.
I am so curious to see if by the end of the day we see Dagger Duchess not in one game on one side. I feel like she'll probably be, if not in 100% of games, 95+%, and then that other game will be the Cannoneer looking to snipe like something heavy. But I mean, as of right now, it's just been all Dagger Duchess, or I think what everyone's calling her, Princess Peach. So I bet we have a lawsuit incoming for that.
Well, it does certainly feel like she lets you cover more bases, and as you said, Cannoneer for a snipe, but you better get that snipe right if you're going to take that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, and we got some, looks like giant GY top of our screen here. And there we go, early on. I mean, GY is one of those things that you see Dagger Duchess with struggle just a little bit. If she's already, you know, shot all of her daggers, you're low in elixir, it can be really difficult to cover up those last few skellies, or even if you just miss like 1 or 2 skellies with your cleanup, Duchess ends up being kind of rough in that situation, but that's a lot of what ifs.
A lot of what ifs indeed. You have to imagine there's a set of arrows in there for Mugi to clean up those guards when they come out on defense. Here we go, Loon in for Ian, Bats plus Little Prince trying to work. Zap will stun for a moment. I think we're gonna get a connection here, and just dies right before death damage in, lead for Ian, but you know he wanted a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, he's only down a couple elixir. He gets the death damage. I like that he puts his opponent on blast there, right? The Dagger Duchess is low. The air cards are mostly out of cycle. The zap is going to reset that Little Prince. So it makes it pretty scary there. Mugi still does a great job defending, doesn't end up down in elixir. And here's a nice body block at the bridge. And this is one of the situations that Balloon or some of those big tanks by themselves ends up really costing you, right? When they get caught across the bridge by themselves and that Dagger Duchess has a full clip.
And good cover with the Evo Zap, and now arrows come out to clear on both sides. Ian with the lead for the moment, as we are just 30 seconds away from sudden death overtime, has held well, cycling guards to the left-hand side when a potential graveyard push is getting built.
Yeah, and this is the second game already today where we're seeing Inferno Tower come into play, which I really, really like this. That's a great use of the ability there. Pushes away, doesn't actually retarget, though. The Giant stays just in range long enough. And now this is what I'm talking about. You see those last 2 skellies missed by the arrows, though. The Knight is able to clean things up, but look at this. You get the Knight right in front of the tower, lines up that bowler, and this is where the Little Prince just shines. Oh, that would have, I think, been maybe a King Tower activation if that bowler shot, which would have been huge for Ian.
And Ian calling good game here. If the replay booth can pull the what began with guards cycled opposite lane, and it looked like Mugi just went, oh, you're gonna take that out the gate. And I understand the arrows are there and the guards could be cleared, but man, Ian just felt like he had to spend a lot to not get a successful defense.
Yeah, Bowler gets on tower there too, which is absolutely huge with the way the guards are placed. Dagger Duchess is low. I mean, one thing I will say after watching more and more of Ian play is he calls good game a lot of times when it's not actually good game, you know? I think the biggest problem with that in my mind, if you do it on ladder, it's whatever, but I feel like in the competitive scene, it almost feels like you're giving up on yourself a little bit. I don't know if he necessarily is, but when you talk about like winner mentality, I mean, look at this. This balloon's gonna get a drop. You got a second balloon coming in. I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Arrow's a little high, doesn't get the archers, but that Little Prince needs to be covered. Balloon is going to get a drop. No, wow.
And that whole sequence, again, for the replay booth, pull that one out, and it began with, we saw a miner cycled earlier in the game that just went and died, but that time he used the miner to drain the daggers from the Duchess and let that tower be low, low, low. Balloon's able to sneak on through, and that was a brilliant recovery and phenomenal win by Ian.